welcome back to the channel. And after the success of the last video as a first ride review, I thought I'd jump on board the Street Glide and review this one as well. So, spoiler straight away off the bat. Spoiler team, this bike is not a first ride review. This is mine. I own this bike at the moment, but I am thinking about getting rid of it, and this is one of the ones I was talking about in the previous video that I am thinking about getting rid of. It is a Harley Davidson Street Glide Special. Specifically, it's a 2023 Street Glide Special, and that's important because the 2024 model year changed quite significantly, actually. This is a 2023 model year. Honestly, I prefer the 23 over the 24. So the 23 is a Milwaukee 8114 cubic inch engine. It's 1868 cc's essentially, close to 2 litres, and air-cooled, etc. The new 2024 onwards is, I think, a 117 now. So it's a bigger engine. It's 1923, I want to say, cc. There's not a lot of difference really in it in terms of power and torque. It's not huge amounts, but they are different. Again, this isn't a channel for statistics and numbers. And then the new one came with a swathe of changes to the dash. It became a lot more digital, and I mean a lot more digital. Huge big screen, LED indicators integrated into the front fairing, and big changes to the controls here, so it's more like a PlayStation grip than this one. And for me, it went, for a Harley at least, it went too techie based. So this is the 2023 model, and this is the one I picked up, and it's the Anniversary edition. So when we do the walk round later, you'll see the incredible paint job that this one gets. Again, another spoiler, unlike the MT10, this is not a stock bike. There are subtle changes to this. And I have only made subtle changes, and the reason why I made subtle changes is because it's an anniversary bike, and I feel like if I made too many changes, it then is no longer an anniversary bike and it drops in value, so I've kind of left most of it as stock. That being said, in terms of performance, it has got aftermarket slip-ons on in the form of Cobra Neighbour Hater Gen 2s, and it has had a stage 1 tune because of Cobra Neighbour Hater Gen 2 slip-ons. Jeez, I couldn't speak then. Because when you change exhausts, you should give the bike a tune to make sure airflow in versus airflow out is correct. As part of that stage 1 tune, it's also got an aftermarket K&N air filter fitted. That's about it though. Does make it sound slightly nicer though. So this is, like I said, 2023 Street Glide, and this is the one I'm thinking about getting rid of. So I thought I'd take it out for the test route, in a hope that I could tell you essentially why I want to get rid of it. It's no secret to any of you that I live on the sunny south coast of the UK. Weather down here isn't terrible, it's quite nice. And the UK in general is, I mean, it's small enough to fit in certain states in the US. Now this is a Grand American Tourer. It's a big touring bike designed to do big tours, which I was like, I'll grab this bike because I'll do big tours. I don't. And honestly, I don't know if I ever will. I'm not sure that's something I'm ever actually going to do, like big tours. I don't know. And if I do a motorcycling holiday, I don't know if I would want to do it on a Grand American Tourer. So if you're going to do huge amounts of highway and motorway miles, this is beautiful. It sits there, it's effortless, it just does the miles, it's planted, it's comfortable. At speeds, this thing really shines. It's really, really good. But in the UK, and at slow speeds, riding around, it can be cumbersome. Now what's quite interesting is at mid to higher speeds, it sort of tips in nicer than the Fat Boy does. It turns slightly nicer than the Fat Boy does. It doesn't turn anything like a Naked would do, of course. It's a big heavy tourer, but it does tip in a lot nicer than the Fat Boy, and it's because of this super heavy front end. If you're unaware about a Street Glide, what makes a Street Glide, it's essentially this front fairing. So the touring chassis has a number of different models, from the Road King to the Street Glide to the Road Glide. And the thing that makes the Street Glide separate to the others is this big front fairing. Now the Road Glide also has a big front fairing. The difference is the Road Glide's front fairing is fixed to the bike itself. The Street Glide's front fairing is fixed to the handlebars. So if I turn the handlebars, the whole front end goes with the handlebars, which means when you turn the handlebars, the weight of that front end is on the handlebars that you're turning, which again, for tipping it into corners, I think it's quite nice. For handling it at low speeds and in traffic, it's a pig on occasion. Not very nice at all. And it's just a big bike. When we do the walk round later on in the car park, you'll see that it is a big bike. and I just don't think I use it for its intended purpose. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to really use it for its intended purpose. At that point, it seems a shame for it to sit in my garage, get pulled out once a month and be polished, and then get put back in the garage, right? It's just, what a waste of a beautifully big bike. If I can therefore hand this in and perhaps get something that tickles a fun factor that I don't get, then, you know, that's probably worth it. At the same time, I have a fat boy, as I've told you, so I have a Harley Davidson Cruiser. This is a Harley Davidson Tourer. Feeling that the platforms will be different. One's a Cruiser, one's a Tourer. They'll be different, surely. They kind of just do the same thing. They kind of just ride the same way. This one's quieter. I didn't put super obnoxious exhausts on this one. Again, because I was touring, I wouldn't want that droning in my ear the whole time, was my logic. Also because I'm more likely to take pillion on this bike. And so if I'm taking pillion, then I also don't want them to have a horrible time. Luce would obviously complain at me if the pipes were stupidly loud. But, you know, again, I'm not using it for that. I just haven't. And so otherwise, for me, riding a bike around on my own, it just does the same thing. It just does the same thing as the Fat Boy. So this one's one I'm definitely going to play with and modify less, because it's an anniversary edition. So then I want to keep the Fat Boy more, because it's kind of more mine. And I know that sounds, I don't know, maybe it sounds a bit cliche, but because I've done things like the Fat Boy, I've changed the handlebars, I've changed the exhausts, I've got a load of it repainted to fit kind of what I want. It feels more my bike than this feels my bike. They're both my bikes, obviously, but you know, I don't know if that makes sense, but being able to customize it more means you can make it more yours, more bespoke and unique to you. Anyway, back to the Street Glide. Right, so this bike, like I said to you already, is an 1868cc in Milwaukee 8 114 cubic inch Milwaukee 8 engine. It's a V-twin, and it has all the sort of traditional V-twin attributes. Being a Harley Davidson, as you can see on the rev counter there, it kind of redlines at 6,000 revs. It goes up to 8, but it doesn't. And if you get to that kind of rev range, it starts screaming its nuts off. It is, however, highly torquey, very, very torquey bike. If you get a stage 2 tune on these, then you can put in a torque cam or a power cam. If you put in a torque cam, which is what I have in the Fat Boy, it gets even more torquey. The torque is what makes them fun. The top end speed, the acceleration isn't necessarily what makes it fun, it's the torque that makes the bike fun. So it's powerful enough, like I say, but we're talking like probably just over 100 horsepower on this thing. That's kind of it. You're not really going to get, and it always baffles me how Americans typically manage to stick massive engines in vehicles and get minimal horsepower out of it. That being said, it actually genuinely means, for the most part, that the 114s are semi-beginner friendly. Now, I'm not saying I'm not suggesting that you should get a Milwaukee 8 114 as your first bike, because you shouldn't. They're heavy, cumbersome beasts, and they're very easy to drop because they're so heavy. But in terms of power and power delivery, I think they're quite calm. Especially compared to that MT10 I rode, for example. Now I know obviously that's a litre bike, also not beginner friendly, but you get what I mean. Like the power delivery, I'm pretty sure it's a ride-by-wire throttle. It's pretty calm and relaxing. It's just nice and easy to ride, and that is one of the things I will say about the Street Glide. If you are at 10, 20 mile an hour and over, very easy to ride bike. Really, really easy. So it's a 6-speed gearbox, 1 down 5 up, as you would expect from an engine this size, I think. And it's just a very easy bike to ride. In terms of aesthetics and comfort, I'm obviously sat upright because it's a Harley Davidson Cruiser. You can see my arms out in front of me. I've got quite a straight back right now. You can see my legs down in front of me as well. This is what I was talking about previously about forward controls. So my legs are in a nice forward position. I have ridden this thing for 2-3 hours straight and had no issues with any kind of pains in both my back or my knees. My one complaint as a 6'2" rider is that this thing gives me incredible protection in the chest and neck area from the wind. It does. It's very, very good at that. However, this fairing at motorway speeds, highway speed, typically blows wind into the mid-stroke top of my helmet, and I get a horrible buffeting. And I've changed the windscreen a few times to try and improve it, and I haven't really made much of an improvement, or at least I haven't really noticed an improvement. So it just kind of smashes me in the face the whole time, and I don't love that. When you're supposed to be protected by the wind from these things, I have to kind of tuck in here, and you can hear them. I get zero wind sound if I tuck in here, nothing at all. And you don't want to be crouching forward like that on a motorway, do you? Because then you're going to get the back pain that you're trying to avoid by sitting on a cruiser. So in terms of seating position, it's what you would expect. It's armchair sitting, it's knees straight, legs down onto footboards. The footboards are very comfortable, obviously. A big fat brake pedal there. yeah, aesthetics is quite comfortable. Like I said, that my only issue is that wind buffeting me in the face, but the position is quite nice. You do see people when they get hold of these things who raise the handlebars up to where, like where my Fat Boy is. I don't like it, and the reason why I don't like that is because these mirrors. Now, I complained a lot on the MT10 about the mirrors because I couldn't see shit out of them. These are like the polar opposite. Street Glide mirrors are incredible. I can see everything. Absolutely everything. I get a bit of my hand and I get everything behind me on both sides. The mirrors on Street Glides, it sounds odd to say this on an exceptionally expensive motorcycle, but the mirrors on Street Glides are an incredible feature. They're solid, you can see clearly, they're great, I love them. So yeah, top mirrors on these bikes, really, really good for seeing out of, which is actually important when you're changing lanes on a motorcycle. Top mirrors, love them. In terms of the ergonomics and the controls here, they all kind of make sense. At this point, I can obviously show you what I was talking about in terms of indicators. When I watched the MT10 review back as I was editing it, I realised that I said, you press left to go left and right to go left, right to go right, and everyone's probably going, well, that's true of every motorcycle. What I mean is, you press the left-hand side to go left. There's a left indicator there, right? There's not a right indicator there. You press the right-hand side to go right. See? Right indicator. What you can also do, as I will show you in just a moment, is you can press the left-hand side to go left, and then you can press the left-hand side again to cancel, and I like that. I would like to be able to do that on the MT10. What this also has, obviously, is indicator self-cancelling feature, which is interesting because it doesn't have a whole raft of technology like the MT10 has. It hasn't got a 6-axis IMU, it hasn't got lean sensitive ABS and cornering ABS and all that nonsense. It hasn't got any of that stuff at all, but yet it has self-cancelling indicators, and they go press it again, off. I don't know why that really appeals to me, but it really appeals to me, and since I've got used to having the right indicator on that side, I hated not having it there, and I think it's just a familiarity thing. I don't think it's actually because it's necessarily better. I think it's just a familiarity thing for me, but it's definitely one of those things that I quite appreciate. Otherwise, it's really, really simple. You've got hazards, you've got your kill switch, you've got your engine start, you've also got the back button for your menu, and underneath there you'll see there is another little back button and a joystick. On the right hand side you've got another joystick for the home menu. You can navigate the menus on this TFT screen, which is also touch screen. You've then got your traction control, you've got your horn, your lights, your high beam, etc., and you can connect a helmet to this and then speak through that, and then you can give it voice commands, but the module to do that costs extra. So on a bike that costs this much, if you want to be able to connect your helmet and talk to your bike and tell it to do things, it costs even more again. Then on there you do have cruise control as well. On the top here we've got a mode switch for our odometer and stuff like that, so we can switch between range and trip and all that kind of stuff. In terms of functionality up in front of me, you get quite a lot. So you do get a radio, you'll see speakers in front of me, you do get a radio. Early on, the novelty of having the radio on was great. I loved it. It gets quite boring quite quickly, and when you're sat in traffic, it's just a bit, I think it probably just annoys other riders as much as it's great for you to listen to the radio. So it's a feature that is there, but it also doesn't sound incredible. So if you want to really listen to the radio on any kind of journey, you're going to need to have the volume high. But honestly, I would probably be investing in an aftermarket radio. Again, increases the cost. You've got to pay for a helmet module, you've got to pay for an aftermarket radio. If you're connecting your helmet, why would you then want a radio on? Like, you want to be listening to music through your headset. So odd. I'm not sold on it, right? But you know, I don't know. It's an odd one. We'll go. We'll be fine. So yeah, so you also have obviously on the home screen you have your options and menu, and then you have sat nav, which is fine. It does the job. It's okay. It's good. You can find routes. It can be a bit funny trying to find routes on it because you can't. I don't think you can just put in a 7-digit postcode here in the UK, which is slightly irritating. But you can put in a postcode, or the most part of it. I think you put in the first 5 digits of the postcode, or the first 3, and then the first 1 of the second part, which means it kind of gets you to the rough area. But it's not easy to have your phone out, and then so you'd have to stop. But fucking hell, those bumps! The MT10 just ate it up. This thing just nearly rearranged my spine. I forgot how firm this suspension can be. Talking of the suspension, we've got forks at the front. I don't think they're upside down. I don't think they're upside down forks at the front. And then we've got 2 springs at the back, which is one of the main things that makes this different to a Softail. So a Softail has a single spring under the seat. These have 2 suspension rods either side of the rear wheel, which you can't see because of the saddlebags, which again we'll show you very, very soon. And for the most part on motorway miles, again, the suspension is comfortable. It's good in corners. It is on occasion quite firm on bumpy roads, which I would have expected it to be a little bit more plush. Maybe it's because I'm a big fat heavy sod. But yeah, I don't know. It's fine. It's okay. It's just that's it. It's fine. It's okay. Yeah, they're not upside down. I didn't think they were upside down. Or are they? I don't fucking know or care. They are forks. They suspension me. That's what they do. They suspension me, team. They eat up bumps. That's what they do. That's what forks do. Yeah, they're upside down. Right, anyway. If I remember rightly, I have to have a look at the walk round. I think we're talking about 2 disc brakes, 2 discs at the front with 2 calipers and a single caliper in the rear. The brakes, I talked about this on the MT10 review as well, right? It's a Harley Davidson. It weighs about 3 houses worth, I think, of weight. But you know what? The brakes do a job. There's a couple of times I've had to grab them quite hard. Not very often, but there's a couple of times I've had to grab them quite hard. And it does the job. That's fine. They're not expecting you to be doing 150 on a track, are they? So, you know, for the most part, they do exactly what you would need them to do. There's not tons of feel through them, really. They're just a brake, you know. Again, I could tell you all this fancy stuff that other reviewers tell you about the initial bite and the initial feel. I don't really know what most of them are talking about, and I don't know if they know what they're talking about. The brakes stop the bike. They do a reasonable job. If you're riding hyper-spirited, you have to be aware of the fact that you're riding a monumentally heavy beast, and if you're going at significant forward speed with that mass behind you, it's going to be more difficult to stop. So if you're riding a foot away from the van in front doing that and he slams his brakes on, you're probably going to be sitting in his passenger seat pretty quickly. So don't do that. First gear on these is also, I found, a lot less usable than the MT10. So you just heard me then put it into first, because that's what I was doing on the 10 the other day. Didn't like it. Loud and screamy straight away. But the one thing I will say is, for the most part, the rest of the gears, you can put them in any gear you want and it's fine. I'll stick it in here and have a look at the Street Glide Special with our quick, cheeky little walk round. Let's see how easy this one gets into neutral. Nope. 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 There we go. And that's what I mean when I talked to you about the other day about doing a country song. Honestly. So there we have a 2023 Anniversary Street Glide Special. The red paintwork is specifically the Anniversary paintwork, so you couldn't get this on any other Street Glide. This is the only one that it came in. They made 1,600 of these worldwide, and we have number 737. So the reds are all the different reds from previous models, and they put this red paintwork across all of the paintwork, essentially, including little badges, especially on the air filter and on the cam cover down there. You've got this beautiful 120th anniversary Harley Davidson badge, because it is the 120th year for 2023, and you have this nice little vehicle number there that tells you it's the 120th anniversary Street Glide, which you guys have seen. These levers and the seat are not stock. You don't typically get the sissy bar at the back here either, or the docking kit. I've added the docking kit, I've added the sissy bar, I added the levers, I added heater grips, and I've added a custom Salomon seat. There's 2 reasons. 1, it's significantly more comfortable, but 2, it protects the Anniversary seat, which also has Anniversary livery on it. I've got that sat at home, so the leather's not getting used, worn through, sun soaked, etc. So here it is. This is the, like I said, the Milwaukee 8114 cubic inch engine, so 1868 cc's. It's a big V-twin, it's torquey, it's fun. At the front end you have this massive fairing. As you can see, the wheel was turned to the side, the fairing's leaned with it because it's connected to the front forks. You've got this, again, this beautiful red paintwork on the front here. The single front-facing LED headlights. You do have 2 discs, I was right, yeah, on the front, because it needs that little bit of extra stopping power. The Fat Boy's only got 1 disc, but it needs that extra bit of stopping power because it is such a heavy bike. And you've got that beautiful bronze wheel colour. Don't look at the fact that I haven't cleaned them before we came out. In fact, don't look at the fact that the bike's dirty in general. I'm going to get it sold via Crescent, so they said they'll clean it for me, so I didn't really bother. You've got this beautiful sloping rear end, and you've got these big saddlebags at the back as well. And these are obviously part of the fit and finish of the bike, and they give you plenty of space where you can store stuff if you were to go out and cut around. You've got this massive area, which I hated, and I changed it to something smaller, and it didn't really do the job because the radio kept cutting out because it couldn't get a signal, so I've kept that one on there. I've got these aftermarket pipes. The stock ones sound okay. They don't actually sound the worst in the world, but they don't sound great. The neighbour heaters are quite nice, however, and subtle and quiet and not too noisy. But there you have it. It's a big, heavy beast. I think for me, the Street Glides is one of the first things I think of when I think of traditional Harley Davidson, and it's this batwing fairing at the front. So the batwing is the Street Glide, the shark nose is the Road Glide. This is the one for me that I think screams traditional Harley Davidson. I think this absolutely screams traditional Harley Davidson, but it does make it heavy and cumbersome. It makes it quite uncomfortable through traffic for me personally. Some people probably get on with it fine. I don't love it. It's just huge, isn't it? And for a UK roads, it's probably a little too big, if I'm being honest, especially for what I'm using it for, to and from work, in through town, off to country lanes and coffees, etc. It's probably just a little bit too cumbersome. That being said, if you look at the Saddleman rear seat and how thick and spongy this is, and you think about those pegs, your passenger's going to be incredibly comfortable on the back of this bike. You can get bigger rear seats as well. I've got a little backrest just to give them something to lean against in case the riding gets a bit spirited, but they are going to be quite comfortable. But there it is. That is a 2023 Street Glide Special. The Anniversary is majoritively the paintwork. It's pretty much everything's the paintwork. The special parts, for reference as well, the special part is all the black trim. So the black trim is what makes it a special. If you don't have a special, that's chrome trim. I'm not a huge chrome fan, which is weird being also a Harley Davidson fan. I'm not a chrome fan. Anyway, what do you think when you see this bike? We said this before about the headlight on the MT10. I said, let me know in the comments section below whether you did or didn't like the headlight. And what I got was 0 comments about the headlight. So what do you think when you see Street Glide? Do you think traditional Harley? Do you think obnoxiously big bike? Do you think too big for British roads? What do you think when you see a Street Glide Special? So here we are back on board the bike. Like I said, here you've got your trip computer. So you've got your range, your forward pressure, your rear pressure, your odometer, trip A, trip B, back to range, and then you've got your voltage. Never understood why I have that. I don't know if I care. Fuel, you can see I've got 133 miles and I'm just under half a tank, so it's got quite a large range. You'd expect it from a Tourer. Rev counter with warning lights, a speedometer with warning lights, and then we have this kind of main screen here. And if I go home on the main screen, because it is touchscreen, you've got radio, sat nav, phone connectivity, and you can go into settings, and you go into settings for each one, but we'll keep it on sat nav for now because why not. Talked about the buttons here, so you can use this joystick to go in, out, and the enter button is the enter button, so we can use this joystick to manipulate the settings on here. We'll show you the cruise control later if I think about it. Nothing's overly complicated. This little wheel on the end here is for the heated grips, which are aftermarket fitted by Southampton Harley Davidson when they were open. Yeah, that's about it really. Right, just check the battery for the camera. It's looking good. Get the gloves back on, which is always slightly harder when you've started sweating, to slide them back in. And we'll be on our way. Now, what I don't like in this thing is doing things like U-turns, because it's just big and cumbersome. He says doing then quite a nice U-turn. But it doesn't have a small turning circle. I don't think it's a surprise to any of you that it doesn't have a small turning circle. It's quite a large amount of space you need, and I think doing a U-turn on a normal smallish like estate roads, like if I was driving in where I live and I had a clear road with no cars parked over side and I was on the MT10, I would happily do a U-turn. If I was on that same road in this, or even the Fat Boy, if I'm being honest, I probably wouldn't risk doing a U-turn. Anywho, back to the riding portion of the video. I'm enjoying these reviews. I'm enjoying these reviews a little too much. I'm worried that I'm going to end up running out of bikes to review, because I don't know how many manufacturers will let me take a bike out for 2 hours and bring it down this way. Because what we have in our local area is a short supply of motorcycle dealers that are within sort of 10 minutes of the route that I've booked. So I need to speak to a couple of the other dealerships and see if they'll be prepared to let me bring it back to Totten, do my route, and then bring it back to them, because some of them are like in Bournemouth and Dorset and stuff like that, and I don't know whether they'll be happy with that or not. They might be. You never know, they might be. We can only ask, can't we? The other problem I have with Harley Davidson V-twins in general is this, right? So it's sat here pairing away quite nicely. The problem I have on these things is they get incredibly hot when they're stationary. Incredibly hot when they're stationary. You need to be moving to get the airflow through the engine to keep it cool. Yeah, it gets warm on the legs. But you know, it's one of the things, isn't it? When you get a big V12. The thing is, I said this on the MT10 review. I'm referring to it quite a lot. I'll link it above somewhere. But I said this on the MT10 review, right? They do different things. What's this lunatic doing? They do different things. Okay, so the MT10, I had a lot of fun on it. It fed the fun factor. It fed my need for excitement and a bit of adrenaline. Harleys, I don't think quite do the same thing, and some people will go tell me that I'm wrong and they use Harleys for exactly those same reasons. But for me, Harleys are a soul factor rather than a fun factor. They make you feel good. They're a nice cruiser. You sit there with your arms out in the sunshine, just cruising along, just feeding the soul. So you're then getting your positive endorphins, not from the speed it can do, not from how exciting it makes you feel, but just from that beautiful cruise, that rumble of the V-twin. It really, like I said, it really feeds the soul. That's why I think they're quite different bikes, and I think actually people could own some kind of cruiser that does that. It doesn't have to be a Harley Davidson, of course, but someone could own some sort of cruiser that does that and own a hypernaked or a sports bike like an MT10 or an S1000 or something like that, right? And I think that both bikes can do very, very different things and have a purpose in a person's garage. Now, we're talking about expensive Harleys, expensive S1000s. You could do it cheaper. You know, Honda do the Hornet SP for less than 10,000. Indian make cruiser motorcycles that are cheaper. Other brands make Triumph, make the bobbers and stuff like that. And again, a bobber I don't think is going to give you a similar kind of experience to, say, the Hornet. But what it will do is it will feed the soul, whereas the Hornet gets the little excited juices flowing. And I think it's different to differentiate that different bikes can do different things for different people. Some people want the bike to be an adventure tourer, so they go off-road. At the moment, I couldn't think of anything worse of going off-road on a motorbike, but some people love it. Some people buy big adventure bikes because they're more comfortable when they ride. They're like the SUV drivers of the motorcycle world. So, oh, you've got an adventure bike. How often do you go off-road? I don't, but it's more comfortable when I'm upright, and that's fine. And people, the reason why there's so many different types of bikes is the same reason why there's so many different types of cars and so many different types of trainer. Different taste for different people. Sneakers for the Americans, by the way. Different taste for different people. People like different things. I think it's important to recognise that there isn't this is best, this is bad, this is good, this is terrible. Because you like a naked bike or a sports bike doesn't make a cruiser terrible. I think sometimes some people, if they actually gave them a chance, went out and rode them for a couple of hours and kind of went at it with an open mind, you're going to enjoy yourself. That being said, again, back to the review of the Street Glide, this is a hard one to justify on these roads. It is a nice one to ride. I don't hate it. It is an enjoyable bike to ride, but it just... I'm having problems with my hoodie tassel banging my helmet. It's really annoying me. I enjoy riding it, and it handles nice. It feels quite nimble when it's up to reasonable speeds. It's just a huge amount of bike that I don't use fully. I don't do the mileage in the tank to warrant a big tank. I don't really go on mountain passes and drive all the way up to Scotland or across Europe where I need to have enough space in my saddlebags to hold enough clothes and stuff for a week, and I don't, I just don't use it for so many of the things that it does. I don't ever have the radio on. I very rarely use the sat nav. There's a whole lot of bike here that I kind of don't really use, and what I've sort of started to learn on my motorcycle journey is that sometimes less is more, and sometimes having a billion gadgets and a million different things isn't always a positive, and the Street Glide's one of those. You know, it's alright, it doesn't have electronic rotor aids, so it has less in that regard. It's got keyless, and it's got sat-nav, and it's got radio, and I don't really use any of it, and it's all selling points that are like, hey, here's reasons to make your bike more expensive. Doesn't really add anything to your enjoyment necessarily, apart from the things that you can say to people on reviews or when you're in a car park at a bike cafe. You go, oh, it's got a sat-nav, it's got a radio, it's got keyless. Other people are like, yeah, cool. Don't care, because people don't care. So if you're thinking about a Harley Davidson Street Glide, what I want you to do is I want you to really ask yourself, what are you going to use it for? Are you going to go long distance? Have you got a 45, 50 minute commute to work and you want to use it to commute? Are you going to do touring? Are you going to go on holiday with it? Are you going to go abroad with it? If you're going to do all those things, yeah, you know what? A street glide might be for you. When we get to this kind of speed though, when you're in traffic in the UK and small roads, this front end becomes incredibly cumbersome, and it wants to tip all the time, and it wants to fall over all the time. And a slight tip, because of the weight of it, a slight tip, genuinely a slight tip, can make the bike want to fall over. There's a foal there. Didn't see the foal. A slight tip on these handlebars can make the bike want to kind of tip over and go. And that can be hard. I've legitimately pulled muscles before getting the thing off the driveway. So where I live, I ride forward into a garage and shut the garage and lock it up. When I bring the bike out, I roll it back onto my drive and put the side stand down on a big rubber mat that I've got, and then I back it into the road. And I have to go right hand down to back it out that way onto the roads. And on this one, at least, if you get that slightly wrong, the whole bike wants to fall over, and then I have to engage Hulk arms to hold the thing up, and I have pulled chest muscles on no less than 2 occasions trying to hold this thing in the upright position to stop it from falling over, because I cannot think of anything more absolutely sickening than dropping this 2023 Anniversay paint job on the tarmac, because I cannot imagine for one moment it's going to be cheap to replace anything that's got that paintwork on it. So, you know, let's avoid doing that. But that, again, that's at times, that's when I've gone, I would have fucking fuck this bike. Because if it was something a lot lighter in that scenario, I just wouldn't be even worried about it. It wouldn't even happen. It wouldn't even tip because it hasn't got the front end weight. If you think about most other motorcycles, their front fairings are pretty minimal. If you're talking naked bikes, you're talking maybe headlights and screens attached. If you're talking sports bikes, well, actually most of the front ends of those aren't attached to the handlebars. The handlebars are on their own, and they operate independently. So this is an odd one. But again, I mean this when I say it. When you're at any kind of speed and you want to tip the bike in, it does make the handling quite nice, because the way it's not, you don't have to wrestle it into a turn because it already wants to tip. So wrestling it into turn, like I have to sometimes wrestle my fat boy into turns. So the fat boy's got a fucking huge 240 rear section tyre and a big front tyre as well. In fact, its front tyre is basically as big as most sports bikes' rear tyre. I think the front tyre is a 160, but I'm not sure. It's a 240 rear. So when you come up to especially with the fat boy, before I changed the handlebars, when you wanted to wrestle that into a corner, you had to really wrestle that into a corner. Huge amounts of counter steer and push it and roll it over. With the meat hooks on it, with the bigger handlebars, I've got more leverage, so it's slightly easier to do it now. But let's be fair. I still have to kind of wrestle it in on certain bends and certain corners, and I still have to go around certain bends really slowly because I'm not sure how it's going to respond. Because also the second you throttle, it wants to just stand itself up because of the way the wheels are, and because it wants to stand itself up straight away. If you throttle out of a corner too early and you're going too quickly, it's going to want to understeer and come off the road. So it's important with that one that you take it quite easy because of the weight on the front. I feel like it's because of the weight. Maybe people can tell me that I'm wrong here and that scientifically I'm speaking absolute bollocks. But because of the weight on the front end here, when you go to counter steer and tip it in, it just wants to go. And if you don't know what counter steering is, we can do a whole other lesson on that, kids, on the channel at some point. But counter steering is weird. So people think that when you want to go right, you turn right. When you go left, you turn left. That's what you do with a car, right? But if I push my right handlebar, I'm pushing the handlebars that way, so I would logically go left, right? Because if you turn your handlebars that way, you logically go left. But I'm going to push out on my right handlebar when there's no cars on that side of the road. Let's get onto the straight bit of the forest. I'll push on my right handlebar, and I'll show you what the bike does, because some people, especially if you don't ride motorbikes, are quite surprised by this, and people often struggle with the concept of counter steering. But counter steering is quite important in the world of motorcycles, and it is scientific. It's not magical wizardry. It is a thing that it's supposed to do. So, just get past the entrance to this car park for Hatchet Pond, onto the straight of the forest, where we're going to set the cruise control. So, push in, orange button appears, right? Get it to 40, knock it down, goes green, cruise control's engaged. You can ride this hands-free. And if I ever want to show you how stable this bike is, look, it's not going anywhere at all. Dead straight line, okay? So, it is very good at doing moto miles, cruiser miles. It's exactly what it's designed for. You can, if you're good enough with your legs, go around bends using just your legs on this bike, and at these speeds it's controllable. Okay, there you go, showing it to you. I'm not doing it anymore because it's naughty. Counter steering, so if I push that way, you'd expect me to go left, push, it goes right. If I push that way, you expect me to go right, push, it goes left. Okay, that's counter steering. Counter steering is really important, and what you should do when you enter a corner is you should push left and then roll into the bend, right? Or sorry, push right and then roll into the bend. I know what I meant. You followed me. So counter steering on this, as I showed you, a little tap and it just wants to go because the front end's quite heavy, and then it will counter steer and roll into the bend, and it does it really nicely. So actually you could do it's really easy to steer this thing at any kind of speeds that aren't low speed maneuvers. This is where I want to be very clear and differentiate. The second you get into low speed maneuvers and traffic on this road, it becomes really shit. It just does. Where is this little tassel? Because it's fucking pissing me off. Just tuck it in there and hope it stays. So when you get into low speed maneuvers on this thing, that tipping then becomes a negative rather than a positive, and there's a point at which it kind of changes and you feel it gets really heavy, and then it becomes quite uncomfortable. Again, if you're in traffic and you're riding through traffic and you're filtering, as motorcycles are allowed to do, and you filter to a point where you're at that, you come under that speed where it becomes tippy and heavy, and you tip it into a car, well then not only are you at that point repairing your Anniversay paintwork at a ridiculous cost, you also have to repair the car at the same time because you're at fault. So there does come a point where it becomes not unwieldy but more of a problem. And why would you ride a motorcycle if you can't do things like filtering? Because I know some states in America are going to scream at me now because it's illegal, but on the most part, if you can't filter, what's the point? Right, we get into this twisty section before we come out to Brockenhurst, and I've done this a few times on this bike. It's going to do it fine, it's going to do it well, but it is still a big heavy one. I think for a lot of people though, honestly speaking, I think for a lot of people, if you took this kind of bike into this kind of area, you would expect it to be uncomfortable to ride and do bends and sharp turns. It really isn't. It does it quite well, and you've got enough torque that coming out of bends is really easy. And like I said already, because of that front end, tipping into those corners is actually not that bad. You have to be a little careful because of the weight of it. If you get a bit too excited and you come in a bit too quick, or you try and come out a bit too fast, understeering is a potential problem. And the other thing you have as an issue with Harleys with the forward-facing controls is that when you lean too much, you'll scrape on the floor, and you can get to a point where your pegs or your footboards can touch the floor and start scraping metal on metal, which a lot of people think is super cool. And it is, until you have to replace those pegs or boards, and that's also not the cheapest thing in the world. So you know, okay, cool. You've got your foot down in a corner rather than a knee down on a sports bike. Well done, you. Now replace them because you've just ground some metal off. Good work. It does. The V-twin, like I said, this has got slip-ons, right? So it's got the same header pipes as is stock on this bike. It's got a stage 1, so there's no cam in it to change the way the engine ticks over. I do have aftermarket neighbour haters, and it does sound quite nice. I don't know if you guys can hear that. It does sound quite nice. It is a lovely sounding bike for the most part. It's less obnoxious than the Fat Boy. But it does make a good noise. It is a nice noise. And it's not one of those ones that's going to deafen you on a 2-hour journey. And again, I've done it, so I know it doesn't deafen you on a 2-hour journey. So, you know, the rumble of a Harley is, I think, one of the most attractive features of Harley Davidson's in general. And this is why Euro 5 is such a shame for Harley as a brand, because the way that some of their bikes are coming out sounding right now is just a bit boring. They don't sound great at all. So, you know, when you pick up any Harley Davidson from the dealership right now, they don't quite sound like you'd hope they sound. Some of them don't sound terrible, but the stock pipes aren't great. And I think Harley Davidson, if I'm honest with you, I think Harley Davidson probably do. They probably make a decision when they make these that they're not going to put any kind of decent pipes on, because they know that 90% of people that buy these things are going to be changing those pipes anyway. So why bother spending any time, effort or money developing good, decent rear pipes for these bikes when you know that the majority of people are going to change them and they're going to put some Cobras on or some Vance and Hines on or something like that, right? So I don't blame them for not doing it. It's a shame on some of their new Sportster series, because the Sportster S and the Nightster, which are their kind of new Sportster bikes, what you're doing, which have got the new Rev Max engine in it as well, the 1250 Rev Max engine and the 975 Rev Max engines. I mean, they sound like excited lawnmowers or a washing machine. They don't sound like a Harley Davidson at all, and that is a shame. But again, you can just change the pipes and they sound different and they sound better. So that's an option, but again, that then looks at additional costs. And I know most motorcyclists will probably factor in a fresh set of pipes as cost, but as an expected cost. But because Harley Davidson, because all things attached to the name Harley Davidson, things get expensive, and so these things are heavily customizable. If you pick a model on the Harley Davidson website and you go to the parts section, especially if you pick a previous model year or 2 models years ago, there is tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of parts that you can get from Harley Davidson alone, just from Harley. So you can get all these bits from Harley Davidson to customize your bike, and that's just Harley. That's not including other brands that make parts for the bikes, and there is a lot of them. You can get a lot of bits. They're very, 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 very customizable, and I don't know if I said very quite enough times then, but they are incredibly customizable. Again, that then starts to become a bit of a price sink. So if you're happy with that, if you're expecting to put buy a nice bike and then put a ton of money into doing things to it, upgrading things, changing things, swapping things, then, you know, maybe there is a bike for you. If you want one out of the box that just goes, that's going to be a thing that our Harley does do, but it won't sound like you want it to sound. It almost definitely won't sound like you want it to sound. That's just a heads up. Like, I think, like, for the MT10, for example, having done that review on Saturday, I think I could buy that bike and be happy with the stock pipes for a year minimum, maybe even longer. I think I could be happy. I'm not saying I will be, but I think I could be happy for a year minimum on those pipes, because the induction noise is really nice and it sounds cool. I think most Harleys, I've got nope, need to change pipes, because it's like, it's that bad, you know, it just is that bad. Right, we're going to skip, it's Monday, right? We can skip Brockenhurst. Can we skip Brockenhurst? Yeah, we can skip Brockenhurst. We're just going to go right here. And the bin lorry's going left anyway, so we don't want to follow the bin lorry. Look at that, an indicator that turned itself off. Who'd have thought it? So in terms of clutch and gearbox, Harley Davidson clutches and gearboxes I normally quite like. I'm a big fan. You get a very engaging clunk when you change the gear. The only problem I ever have of the clutch and the gearbox is finding neutral, and I don't know if that's a me thing, but I always struggle finding neutral. Both bikes, both the Fat Boy and the Street Glide, I struggle finding neutral. I've got it almost down every time in the Fat Boy. This one can be a real pig, as I showed you in the car park. But otherwise, the gearbox is comfortable. You can obviously adjust the tension. I've got adjustable levers. You can't adjust the levers out of the box. I've got adjustable levers on these. And it's comfortable. I can ride a whole day. I don't have any problems with the clutch. What else is there to think about? There was something I was going to mention. Oh, here we go. See here, team. Can you see that right there? That's my gearing indicator. That tells me that I'm in its 6th gear. Here's my clutch hand and my clutch. I'm going to put my clutch in. Now the bike doesn't know what gear I'm in. Why? Why have they decided to put a sensor that doesn't work when the clutch is disengaged? I don't understand. Why can I go, I don't know what gear I'm in? That's really irritating. That's one of the, with the exception of the front end weight at slow speeds, that's one of the only things that really irritates me about this bike. And I'll be honest, like literally one of the only things that irritates me about this bike is that. It's a real niggle. Nothing else truly annoys me about it. the heaviness doesn't annoy me because I expected it. So I can't say that the heavy weight at slower speeds is a thing that bugs me because I expected it, right? That was an anticipated thing, an anticipated problem. But that is the thing that I just will never understand, and it's got to be the design of the bike and the technology and where the sensor sits. But I don't understand why that is a thing that is like, yeah, that's fine, that's cool, whatever. It does annoy me that the sat-nav system doesn't let you put in full postcodes. It does annoy me actually that you have to buy a separate headset module to be able to use Bluetooth for your phone and for your headset. So that fucks me off. In 2023, and a screen like that, I kind of would expected CarPlay or something similar. Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. I don't know if that works. We've got any option to do that. That bugs me. There's a slot in here with a USB port on, and I can just fit my iPhone 15 in there with the cable attached because I bought a right-angled USB-C cable. If you don't have a right-angled USB-C cable, or if you've got an iPhone, what's the Pro Max, or an equivalent sort of Android of similar size, it won't fit in there. That's why. That's annoying. This one, not even a cubby hole. Just make it a cubby hole. Just give me some storage space. I don't know why it isn't a cubby hole. It's a weird decision to make. A voltmeter on the. I don't understand why that was needed. Okay, we've got it, but I don't fully get why we need. Maybe someone could educate me in the chat. Maybe someone could tell me in the comment section why we have a voltmeter on these things. I don't. It feels like, what can we put another dial on? Oh, we'll just put a voltmeter. Okay, yeah, we'll do that. Got a bit tippy there at the end, did you see? Got a bit bent out of shape. It wouldn't let me just roll at 2-3 mile an hour. It does feel a little bit like it handles the bumpies not as well as the Yamaha did, and that's I hadn't ridden this for so long. I just assumed it'd be the other way around. I figured the Yamaha would just do better than the Street Glide. Here's another feature. Okay, into first gear. Right, we're on a hill. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come to a stop. I won't get too close to the car in front. I'm going to put my foot firmly on the brake, and there's a amber light. I've now hands off right foot, hands off foot brake. I've got hill start engaged. When you over rev to brake the hill start, I don't use it very often, so I don't ever know where the biting point is that stops the hill start, because I normally just use the clutch because, you know. But it has a hill start feature, which is nice. Holding a bike this heavy, it's nice to have a hill start feature. We're going to duck walk now because that's what every pro biker does, right? Up the hill. And now we're in Lyndhurst traffic and I can't see me get... See, again, that gap, MT10, probably straight through there. Big red Harley, absolutely not. Right, good, we're moving. So you can see there with the way that the traffic kept sort of moving gently that I didn't really use the hill start because I like to have the clutch working and controlling the bike. So here we come into Lyndhurst, ready for the cool test. And you see yourself in a shop window and like the bike. It's an important test. This big blue window is normally quite a good one. It is cool. Just pull out, mate. Well, of course, the coolest of cools, the Harley Davidson window. I don't think it's as cool. It is pretty cool. I always feel like sitting on these Tourers, you look a little weird, especially with my size. You're sat on it rather than in it, if that makes sense. Well, that's how I feel when I don't feel like I'm sat in it. This is not bad doing, honestly. Anyway, yeah, cool test. Yeah, it's cool enough. You just look like a middle-aged man on a Harley. You know, it doesn't make you look young on a Tourer. If your intent in the world of biking is to be hyper cool, a Harley Davidson Tourer is probably not for you. You will attract, especially with a limited edition one like this, I have learnt, you will attract a ton of attention from middle-age and afterwards men. But that's the bike world in general, in my experience so far. Not that I have a desire to do anything different, but that's just the bike experience. Middle-aged men fucking love motorbikes. Suck out a bus here now as well, and I can't see past the fucking thing. Definitely not going to go for it when there's a lorry there. That's a silly idea. Or when there's a blind ridge. Also a silly idea. So it goes, it accelerates, it's torquey, you can do it in any gear. That was just a roll on and sixth and it just goes. So it's not devoid of power, it just isn't quite as exciting. And I think this is where I've got to with this bike. Like, when I ride it, I enjoy riding it. And when I roll it into bends and it rolls in really easily despite its size, it makes you feel like quite a competent rider. Because you're riding this monumentally huge bike, this massive thing, and you're tipping it in and out, and you're treating it like it weighs nothing. And when you can do that because of the speeds, you know, at that point, it makes you feel like a great biker. It makes you feel accomplished, and it does make you smile. And every time so far that I've thought about selling it, and I've taken it out and ridden it, I've gone, no, I don't want to, because it looks really nice. And it's very shiny, and it's limited edition. But then when I put it back in the garage, you know what I don't do? I don't think, I really want to ride the street glide today. I really want to pull the street glide out and take it for a spin. And when I'm getting ready to go to work or go anywhere and I'm going to go take the bike, because it's a biking kind of day, I open that garage up and I'm like, well, I'm just going to take the Fat Boy. Because it gives me a bigger smile. I think the soul factor of the Fat Boy, especially because I've got a stage 2 cam in it, so it chugs along like a proper Harley. I feel like that gives me a bigger soul factor smile than the Street Glide does. So all in all, Street Glides, I think they're good bikes. I do. I think they're good. I know a lot of people will not agree with me here, but I think Harley Davidson Street Glides are good bikes. I think they're overpriced. I'll be honest. I think they're slightly overpriced. I think a limited edition one is even more overpriced, and I got suckered in by the fact that it was a limited edition. But like I say, I don't really have a desire to go, I want to take the Street Glide out and ride it. I want to take the Street Glide out and ride it. That's not something that happens to me. I feel like I get that a lot more with my Fat Boy than I do with this, and I feel like I would definitely get that more with the what's it called, MT10 than I would with this. Oh look, more useful taxpayers' money. So, you know, I think that's probably one of the main reasons why this bike is going to have to be relinquished, and I'm going to have to hand it over and get rid of it, because otherwise it's just, why would I keep it if it's just going to sit in the garage and it's not a thing that I think. There are occasions where I'm going to do a long journey where I think to myself, well, it's going to be more comfortable on the Street Glide, and inevitably that's going to be true, because that's what it's designed for. So when I went out to Chippenham a few weeks ago, I took the Street Glide because it's designed for longer distances, and it was more comfortable. I will go as far as to say I think I would have had more fun on certain roads if it was the Fat Boy, and definitely if it was the MT10. So in that regards, again, if you think about it that way, I'm like, well, yeah, okay, so it was more comfortable, but you're a biker, you're expecting to stop and stuff like that anyway. So do you really need to worry about the more comfortable, or do you just take the more fun and have an extra break in between? I think that question answers itself, if I'm being honest with you. So I like this bike. I'm glad I've got to experience this bike. If and when I sell it on and move it on, I don't think I'll ever buy another Harley Tourer. I just don't think I will. I've ridden the Road Glides. I've ridden the Road King. They're good. They are. They're good bikes. I don't want anyone who owns one to think that I'm bad-mouthing their bike. They're good bikes, but I just don't really excite me as much as other things that I've ridden so far. They're solid. Again, if you want to do touring, if you want to go long distance, you've got a long commute to work, and you feel like you're going to be more comfortable with a big fairing and a radio, go ahead, get one. But for the UK, for the most part, Tourers are for those people, or people that want to wear little patches on the back and call themselves cool because they're in a bike club. That's what they're for, ultimately. I wouldn't be massively surprised to see Harley start to struggle to shift them quite a lot in the future, because I just don't think they're that useful for these roads, and with the cost of living crisis, I just don't think they are the most practical at their cost as well. And that's a wider Harley problem that we'll talk about in a different show. Anyway, there's my review of the Street Glides. I don't feel like I'm ending this one on such a high as I did before. I don't want to ride every bike as a review biker and go, this is the greatest thing ever, look how amazing this bike is, because that's disingenuous. And I think a lot of people go, this is the most fun I've ever had, this is the most fun I've ever had, this is the most, and then you go, okay, every bike you ride's great. That's not true, is it? So I want to make sure that you guys know that I think this is a solid bike. Would I buy one? Nah. Did I buy one? Yeah. Do I regret buying one? Yeah, probably, actually. I'm glad I've experienced it, but, you know, I could have experienced it on a test ride. I won't buy another. So there you go. There's my Harley Davidson Street Glide review. I think that Harley are going to struggle as well, but that's, like I said, that's a whole other topic. We can talk about that in the Discord server, which is linked below. So if you are, in fact, interested in the world of bikes and you do enjoy what we're putting out here as content, you can get yourself in our biker Discord server. There's conversations in there. There's like 11, 12, 30 people in there right now. So come and hang out. It's quite cozy at the moment. And we can talk about there all things bike. We share news. We talk about motorcycles in general, video ideas, etc., etc. So come and join us in the Discord server. It's linked below. Make sure you get in there. Make sure you get yourself in there. Thank you so much for hanging out on this video. I really hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, please make sure you think about giving it a like. Share it with people that are bikers if you are a biker, and you think people might be interested in this kind of content. This is just my little part of the biker world right now, and I'm trying to make a little wave, and hopefully people are enjoying the content. Like I said, I hope you have in fact enjoyed it, and you can show me that appreciation by leaving a like and dropping a little comment for me that I will respond to. Otherwise, if you haven't already, please make sure you smash that subscribe button. That's super helpful. I'm trying to get us up to 500 subscribers is my first big target, so hit that subscribe button if you are so inclined. It's a beautiful day today on Monday. Hopefully, whilst the weather is good, you guys get out to ride, and if you do, please make sure you ride safe. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.